Podcasting from a remote location somewhere deep in the heart of New York City. This is Crypto Characters, and I'm your host, Jason Nagy. Our guest for today is the inexorable, inexplicable, amazing Alex Chung, founder of Giphy. Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Hey, out there. It's
That's
from
right.
this unforeseen location.
That's right. You know,
in Midtown.
I've been told that this is... I've been told that that's such a cheesy opening, but I really like it. And I'm not afraid to be cheesy, right?
It sounds pretty cool. Midtown is kind of like a nondescript location and all. Like, what is Midtown? I don't even know where it starts or where it ends. So it's
true.
Kind of like, who knows where you are in Midtown?
I was gonna do something one day, like, you know, from a vaguely professional looking building somewhere in Midtown Manhattan or something like that. But you know,
cool.
we have good views here.
Yeah, it's really good views. Way better views than my office or my apartment or anything in my life.
Come on, didn't you move to California for a while? We've known each other for what, 8 years now or something?
Oh yeah, a long time. I went to LA for a year.
I remember.
I lived across the street from the beach in Santa Monica, and then I found out like people are just so happy
in Santa Monica.
Yeah, they're just too happy, and they like just are really healthy, and that's like not what I'm about.
What are you talking about? You're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, dude.
Yeah, but that's
and
not
a rock
about,
climber.
But that's not. I'm not a rock climber. I've been doing it for like 3 months. But that's not. People, people from Brazil, they seem happy.
They do.
Yeah.
That's outlook, man.
Yeah, but wait till you get them on the mat. They're not happy.
Then they crush you.
Yeah.
You know, you can tell too. It's we rolled to the same gym a bunch. So
yeah.
So one of the guys at the gym, I went to grab a slice of pizza with. Don't tell coach, right? After the mat, and there was some guy. He looked like an absolute gorilla. Like he had like the low like Cro-Magnon man, and he looked like he was totally stoned, and he was ordering pizza in front of us. And there was something about the way he moved. I looked at the guy. I was like, that guy's a BJJ guy from Brazil. He was like, I was thinking the exact same thing. There's that vibe that you get where it's like you're totally mellow until you piss him off, and then you're done.
Yep, it's the happy mean guy. Like if you took all the mean people at bars, but you just made them really like stoned and happy. It's pretty much that.
That's right. How'd you get all right? You're a technologist. Is that what you call yourself, or a developer? I don't even know what a technologist is.
I don't know what a technologist is either. I think that was a way to kind of let people that weren't engineers kind of be around engineering, like give them a little bit of cred. It's like. Right. Having like an associate's or something, like our certificate program, or I think now it's like a GA. I used to get like all these resumes for people that wanted to be the CTO of my company and they were like, I have a lot of experience. I've had 3 months of GA classes. And I was like, okay. I called a couple of them because I was like, what are you thinking? And they're like, you can just find everything else online on the internet. I was like, okay. Maybe I should have hired you.
Well, so much for all the work I spent, I spent, right?
Yeah, what did I do? I started as an engineer, hardware engineer. So I have a degree in electrical computer engineering. Mm-hmm. And then I worked at Intel and a bunch of different places, and then got into the startup world in like 98, 99 in San Francisco. I was there till about 2004. And then that's the general cycle of you do a startup, you crash it, then you have to get a job, and then you get a job, then you save enough money to quit your job to start a startup, and then that goes over and over again.
So
25 years later.
How many startups have you been involved with?
Involved with with paper, like 20 plus, I don't know, infinite, but
how many startups have you
that actually worked at? 12 or so. I started dozens, but the ones that actually got funding or so, like around a dozen or so.
That's a lot, dude.
Yeah, because most of them don't work out.
That's true.
Like it's usually like idea or time and place, and
right.
Most of the time, if you're not at the right time and place,
mm-hmm.
then you just gotta fold it and then start over again. It's like kind of like I think about it like as bands, like the best job. Like everyone wants to be a musician, but if you don't play an instrument like me, then what do?
Right. You're a manager.
Yeah.
Or a groupie. That's even worse.
A roadie. If you can get people to pay your way by putting out hits, like 99% of the album, like is not good. You just have to have one hit every once in a while. But you got to put out a lot of music to be able to do that. So, most of the startups are going to fail, but you're looking for that one, mega hit, like Happy Birthday or something that pays your way for the rest of your life.
Enter Giphy.
We'll see where that goes.
Well,
it's doing pretty well now.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I remember when you went big.
When was that? I don't know.
When you went to California.
Oh, are we big?
Well, at least I remember Renee said he's like, yeah, Alex's company just got bought by, it was Google, right?
Oh, that was a previous company.
Okay, so there you go. So you've got a whole bunch of
Yeah,
these,
yeah,
huh?
that was a previous thing. Giphy's still private. We're like,
Oh, it is?
Yeah, we're still running. It's not over yet. We're in the meatpacking.
Okay, because I just saw an article from 2016 about was it Wired? It was on how you grew a $300 million company.
Oh yeah, that's old. Yeah, we have 125 people working on it. Like right now on the Giphy front,
Mhm.
I think most people have sent a GIF now. I think our public numbers are now we about over 500 million people every day use Giphy in some way.
That's
and
amazing.
we're serving like 7 billion GIFs a day. That ends up being like almost twice as many YouTube video views. So it's like a large amount of people sending cat GIFs all day.
But yeah, what's the most popular GIF that you get? Is it cat GIFs?
No, actually not. Like that's like a myth. It used to be, but it turns out there's really two. We're put into every messaging app in the world, so people use GIFs within the context of messaging, and so it's really like you want to express yourself with something, or you want to talk about something. Like this happened. So we do. Most people don't know we do live events every day. So we do multiple.
What do you mean live events?
Like every award show. We're doing the Women's World Cup right now.
Mhm.
We're doing every game there. We're doing with FIFA. We're doing.
Oh, so you take moments from there and then you create a GIF?
Yeah. So we have a bunch of technology and people. So if an event is happening, the NBA Finals, for example, the NBA is doing that with us. When it happens, you can put it out, and anywhere there's a GIF button, people can search for it and talk about that moment. Did you see that happen right now? So we did the AMAs, and we just did pretty much every award show, every major, like the Game of Thrones finale.
Is that
That's
completely
happening.
over? Is it the show finale, or is that just a season finale?
Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't watch this?
No, I don't know.
You don't even know what Game of Thrones is.
Well, South Park killed the damn show for me. Did you see the South Park episode?
I stopped. South Park, I get too lost in South Park. No, I didn't see it.
So I never saw Game of Thrones. It was when it was just coming out, and they have an episode on it, and one of the kids, Butters, is really upset because of all the wiener shots. And so they go to the guy's house, and he's this weird fat guy with weird facial hair and a weird accent, and he has a choir of guys singing wiener, 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 and it's the funniest thing I have ever seen. And I said, I can't ever watch the show now. South Park ruined it for me. So and
South
people are
Park
crazy
ruins
about it.
everything. I mean, those guys are geniuses, but they do ruin everything.
They ruined Family Guy for me too.
Oh man, I don't know if you can ruin Family Guy. It's Family
Did you see their Family Guy episode?
No, I can't watch South Park. Sorry.
They had a bunch of manatees that had like the magic 8 balls, and they would like lift them out of the water with words on it, and that would be, and whatever came out, that's how they would write the episode.
It's probably how they do it.
I know.
That whole thing.
Family Guy loved it. They thought it was great, but
They should try an episode that way.
yeah, I know, right? That'd be funny.
Yes, Game of Thrones, everything that's going on in real time, cultural moments. So it's like, if something's happening in the world, imagine us as like the most real time cultural magazine ready to go, available to you to talk about at your fingertips in every messaging app in the world.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's we can reach, like, in some aspects we're bigger than Facebook because we have Facebook integrates us, so does Instagram, Snap, and every other messaging app in the world. So we can hit everyone. It's kind of crazy.
That really is. Yeah. So here's how I found out that you were Giphy. I sent you an email at some point, right? And then picked up my phone, and I wanted to send a text, and somehow all these gifs came up, and it said gifs by Giphy, and I had literally just sent you an email. I was like, wait, this is Alex. And there was just thousands and I mean, I was just scrolling through and sending. I thought that was the coolest thing.
Yeah, that's what we do.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's been pretty fun.
When did you? It's a great idea to kind of integrate it into cultural events. That's what memes are. It's essentially you're creating mobile memes now, right?
It's like I think about it. It's like a little big. It's much bigger than memes are kind of a characterization or a commentary on something, but really, like when people are talking, like when we're having a conversation, and you start out with saying hellos, and then like how are yous, and then we start talking about what's going on in the world and what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in messaging, you just have words to describe that, but how do you explain complex things or the scene in a bunch of like thumb type text? So we give you all the media and all of the different types of formats so that you can bring in content into your messaging, so you can describe the world and what's going on in culture. And so just organizing everything else that's out there in culture and like having it available to you so you can use, that's kind of like what we do. So we have to be around everything in real time, because if something's happening right now, you have to be able to, people are wanting to talk about it. And so we're very similar to Twitter, except we're just like the media version.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I was going to say, I see your stuff on Twitter all the time.
Yeah, we work with Twitter, so
like there's a billion gifs on Twitter. I mean, it's in all the replies.
Yeah.
It's like Giphy Central essentially.
Yeah, we're in pretty much every app where
you move that mic a little closer to you.
Where you want to this way.
There you go.
We're in any app where people want to bring in pieces of culture and talk about it or express themselves with. So yeah, that's like, the big vision is, we all know like it. I stopped watching YouTube videos. I watch a few every now and then, but it's just too long.
Crypto characters, that's your main
one
that you watch, huh?
That's pretty much the only one now. But it's just too long to watch. And so like I'll go watch my Netflix show like or 2 or 6. And then during the day it's just too long. So if we can get content down to 15 seconds or less, human attention span's about 12 seconds now. So if we can get content down to that, then we can just do bite-sized pieces of content during the day. And like really like how much, like, remember like
you're turning us all into goldfish. Thank you.
No, it's more about you think that way, but it's more about you would read, remember in like college they would make you read like Dostoevsky or like Anna Karenina, and it was 800 pages, and you were like, okay, I had to read it twice, and then I was like, you could have probably told me this in like 20 pages. And I was like, oh, the Cliff Notes actually did it in 20 pages. And that's pretty much like most of it was just not useful in any way. And so some of it, sometimes they are, but lots of things are. For example, like most news headlines.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the news articles out there now are
garbage.
Yeah, it's 99%.
It's clickbait.
Exactly. And so, but you can get the point across in like, give me a couple 5 seconds. I mean, the online news is that way. Like broadcast is just headlines, news, and once I want to get into something, then I can get deeper into it. But as a general barrier to entry, like you can transfer a lot of information in a few bytes, megabytes,
or words.
Words are hard. Words are like the most low bit rate transfer of information that we have.
That sounds very technical. You're talking about our brains, though, aren't you?
No, like writing was always just a passing technology. It's like, we invented writing.
Right.
Like oral transfer of information is actually much more, has much more bits per information, right? Like we can send a lot of compact messaging and emotions and words, but then we had storage of audio. We didn't have that. We ended up writing that. And so transcribing that down ended up becoming it's kind of like us still using like Betamax tapes. it's just like one step in the evolution of being able to convey information back and forth. That's a whole thing we can get into sometime.
No, I want to do that because it's pretty damn interesting. But before we do that, what was our attention spans before it was 12 seconds? Is it
It's gone.
decreasing or?
Yeah, so in the 60s, I think it was a little longer. It was like, I mean, it was never that long. It was always like sub-minute. But it's been decreasing since the 60s pretty progressively with media. And there's a couple ways to explain that. One is, our ability to remain focused is being like, that's kind of the pessimistic way of viewing the world, being inundated by all of this media and everything's being cut quickly. And so we now can't pay attention longer. The other way, the optimistic way to look at that is our ability, most of the information that's coming to us is visual. And so our ability to comprehend visually compact information is increasing. So like our visual vocabulary, like when you see a cowboy riding in the sunset, you immediately know what that is, right? I can show you one clip and you're like, that's the end of the movie.
Right.
You can see like we have enough visual history from cinema now where we can start piecing together really quickly. So we don't need a minute to explain if you watch Citizen Kane, right? Supposedly the best movie in the world, and you watch it now and it's like total garbage.
I'm gonna have to watch it now.
It's because it was great back then because there were all these revolutionary things, but all of that has been absorbed over the last 50, 80 years.
It's like Clash of the Titans.
Yeah.
That was a great movie, right?
Yeah, it was a great movie.
I watched that 100 times growing up.
And now
Kraken.
the little owl, and all of that has been absorbed into
Clay
pop culture.
Owl. It's Clay Owl, right?
Still pretty good. All of that's been absorbed into our vocabulary, so we don't need to explain this stuff anymore. Like we get it. It's like like you had that teacher in elementary school that would just explain every word to you. You're like, you got it. Like you don't need to spend an hour describing this thing. We get it. Like you just need to do it once.
Sounds like the death of great literature, Alex.
No, I would say it's the start of better literature.
Okay.
It's it used to be back in the day, if you think about Steinbeck, he took 100 pages to describe the dustiness of Salinas, California. And you can say that's cool, but you could probably get the same sentiment across in a few images now, and you're like, and now we can get now that we're past the dustiness part, you can start getting deeper into the real meaning of what's going on, actual human interaction, the ability to I talked about this once. I did the math.
Mm-hmm.
Say a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Totally.
Oh, we're using that. Okay, sure.
Well, let's just. Well, I mean,
let's do it.
If you do from a bits, an average number of kilobytes in a page, it's actually much higher. But let's say.
Yeah, I want to also talk about that because you've referenced bits in information instead of letters. So I find that another interesting take that you have.
Letters are just ways to encode information.
Right.
So you either read binary or French or German, and some German's really long and kind of verbose, and so you could probably encode that down. And English is a little bit better. French is totally abstract. No one really gets what people are talking
just
about.
Just like the French.
Exactly. French don't know what's
Try to do business there. Hey, je ne sais quoi.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was my mouth just didn't work, but I actually know how to say je ne sais quoi. Without the heavy end anyway. So.
And then if you encode all of that in a page, that the average page is a couple hundred K, kilobytes. But put an image, you're talking about a meg, a good a 10x on order of magnitude more information in an image.
Right.
So imagine taking the world that you see and then encoding it into these words. And then because what you're trying to do is describe the world in black and white words. And then I'm supposed to take that lossy compression, take it, and then decompress it back to myself.
You're blowing my mind with all this decompression, but I guess you're right. Yeah.
So this was my grad school thesis. It was there was
really?
a NYU professor, Christopher Stevens, or Stevens Christopher, or maybe that was the guy that wrote Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, Christopher Robin.
Yeah, that's right. He wrote this book called
Rise of Winnie the Pooh.
He's the main character of Winnie the Pooh. He wrote this book called Rise of the Image, Fall of the Word.
Okay.
And it was 93 or 97, and
right.
It was all about, you take this word, and you get a certain amount of information from it. But let's say now you take it and you move it. You put a moving image behind it. You show a picture. Now you show sound. And then you show color, and now you you have infinitely about 10x more information that you can share with someone. So the movement, now that we have the technology of which to send moving images back and forth, why would we ever use these static text objects? Like, it's just like,
Well, because a pen and paper is a little easier to write with than a computer, right?
You can definitely type faster in a computer and get more information than a pen and paper. You're just like one of the vinyl people that are like,
I'm so analog, man.
Yeah, my 8-track still rad.
I have a watch, and all it does is tell time.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, we don't need time anymore.
It has a bezel that moves, you know.
Yeah, analog. It's cool, but someday it's really about how much information can like, most of life is about communication. Like, and most of the problems of the world outside of like physical like resources are about miscommunication. Think about every like major war in the world is just like some weird communication problem between some people trying to describe what they're about to another group. And
okay, there might be other theories on that, but yeah.
Well, resources and there's some fundamental
scarce resources, depending on that could be scarce human resources that there are wars about. But
true. Yeah. Lots of miscommunication, right? It's like
there's certainly been a lot of war over miscommunication.
Or I should say, when I mean miscommunication, I don't mean the literal communicating information, but just the whole notion of some idea set not transferring, lack of empathy. Like, empathy is one form of communication, someone understanding how other people feel, the ability to share ideas and information across. That's like been confined to text for like thousands of years. True. Now that we're getting cinema and film, the ability for you to understand how I feel and think about something, like anything that gets that, makes that easier is going to hopefully make the world a better place or a worse place. Who knows?
That's true.
The world's a crazy place. Okay, that was like a whole philosophical tangent on.
Well, that's fine. This is a philosophical show.
Nice.
You know, I don't have a degree in philosophy, but I let people talk about it. So, all right, we were talking about bits and bytes on the page. So, do you actually think that way? I mean, honestly, you're a developer, you're an engineer. Do you actually see writing and the way that we communicate in that way? Is that how you view the world?
Yeah. I mean, I've had to write a lot of papers, and you can condense it down. And if you're a developer, like if you look at code, a lot of people will write lots and lots of code and make it crazy. And I think that's the difference between the old joke used to be that's the difference between an engineer and a computer scientist.
Right.
A computer scientist is it's like a poet and wants to write the coolest code that looks good, and the engineer just is a means to an end. It's just like, give me the most minimal set to do the thing that I need to do. And so I think there's like, the average is like, there's like a bug per every line, 50 lines of code. So if I'm an engineer, I want to express the most amount I can in the least amount of data.
Okay.
Like, and so I'm going to write the most efficient code because I just want it to be super simple and you to get it. And that's like, you know, like languages like Ruby and other like Scala all came out to kind of condense the amount of code that we're putting out, to decrease the number of bugs and to make it more efficient. So I would say like any programming language that lets you convey more information with a better encoding mechanism for that for the transport of information, the better.
Right. It's interesting because
it's like super nerdy. Wow. We just got like way nerdy really fast.
That's okay, man. We nerd out, right?
Yeah.
The legal world has also gone that way from a writing perspective. We used to have all these flowery languages, and I'll read an opinion from 1900 when I have the misfortune of having to do that, and you can barely understand what they're saying. It literally takes time for you to actually understand. And over the years, we've the legal profession has gone to a much crisper, simpler writing. So the best brief is now viewed as the shortest brief, not the longest brief. And it's really apparent even from the way that people were writing 30 years ago. There's a different writing style. Judicial opinions have gotten crisper, usually. The good ones have. And the best brief writing has gotten much crisper. Contracts, agreements, not the case.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a tendency now it is, I think it takes a lot of effort to be concise.
Right.
Like it actually takes way more time to be shorter than it does to just say whatever. I feel like the contracts that I read, the reason why there's more words and not as concise as it wants is sometimes you need ambiguity, right? And so you
Definitely.
you put ambiguity in so that it's not necessarily literal. I don't necessarily know if that's like always the right use case. Like in engineering, ambiguity doesn't really come up that often. Like you want it to be pretty known, but there's lots of places where, and that's like where you get into poetry, where it's like it can be interpreted. It's like postmodern writing.
Postmodern writing is garbage. That's another way to say garbage.
Postmodern law.
Postmodern everything is garbage. It's true that I think there's you're right. There is a lot of legal writing for agreements that is superfluous. I don't really know why. I just think that you have some. They're trying to condense very complicated subjects and put as much as they can into a document, so that that document can guide everything. Because that's the entire purpose of having a written agreement. It's because that agreement governs everything. It is the Bible for our relationship. So I think that that's part of the reason. But it still irks me when I have to read a paragraph that's the length of nearly an entire page. And you run into those, especially in like the lending agreements. If it's above $10 million, you're going to get a couple of those, and it's just like, it's a headache. You need to get your pen out and follow along.
Well, if you think about like, on the topic of your podcast, think about smart contracts and how people are making efficient use. Like all those contracts now are getting put down into a few lines of code with very clear, precise definitions of what the contract states, and they end up being much more efficient because you can do lots of those at a time versus getting a lot of legal people to agree on terms. And usually it comes down to like sending someone money.
Yes.
That's like, I feel like all businesses comes down to just some transaction of financial goods.
The devil in those details are that it's great to say. Well, first of all, I don't know how many contracts are actually being written up into smart contracts. So if I'd be curious, are you seeing a lot of those coming up now?
Not from where I am. I'd be curious too. But I do know that a lot of people are transacting more using lots of digital means where the implicit contracts are built in. So like if you're doing a $10 million deal, lots of people are doing $10 million deals every day. But those contracts are in microseconds, like all the traders are doing these, and those contracts are already written, right? They're done. So they don't have to do it every time. So that's been all put into software now.
Has it? It's actually all software?
Well, there's certain permutations, like all those guys at the trading desk that are doing massive trades. All of those are contracts being signed instantly, right?
That's true. Yeah, they are. They are. You're right. I'm just trying to think about that, but I think that's a fair point. I think they typically use ISDA agreements for a lot of those.
Yeah, you know them better than I do. Not in finance. I hang out on the other side of the.
You're the tech side.
Yeah. We're the people that don't know what we're doing.
Right. Exactly. So how did you? So all right, you were an engineer. When did you start how long after you graduated and got your degree in engineering did it take for you to start your first company?
Well, a bit. I mean, it matters what you mean, but
I don't mean a company where you're like helping dog walking. I mean like a company,
yeah. like selling bottles of water. Did that. I went to go work at Intel right after, and then went to San Francisco to join a startup. So I was part of a bunch of startups before I started my own. And then after the .com crashed, then I was like, this is the best time to start startups. And so we had like 2 or 3, like a bunch of music things. Music was really big back then.
Yeah, back when music was big. It's no longer big anymore.
Yeah, it's tough to play in the music space. No one will invest in a music startup anymore.
Well,
It's just tough. It's a monopoly, right?
Did Spotify kill that, or it was always tough to invest in the music business?
Spotify is the only one that's like SoundCloud kind of is making it out. Spotify really is the only one that's playing because there's only really 3 labels now. You know, I used to work at MTV, and
You did?
Yeah. And so just right, not that far away from here, in this undisclosed location.
I should say a nondescript building.
Nondescript building.
Somewhere deep in the
of Midtown New York. We put all the music videos online, and you know, it was the most popular thing Viacom had done in a long time. It beat all the traffic of all the other Viacom sites combined. But the economics of it were so backwards, we had to shut it down because every stream was paying the music labels royalty. So like music, and so the only way that ended up becoming profitable is Vivo came in and had a deal with the music labels to be able to play at different rates the music videos online.
Okay.
And so I think music is tough unless you're working in junction with the labels. Like if you work with them, then I think you can do things. I think Spotify is the only one that's like really gotten to scale with their business.
Pandora could have done it, but
oh yeah,
they didn't. I don't know. I mean, I use Spotify, right? I don't listen to radio anymore. I don't buy CDs. It's amazing. That just kind of stopped. I had a giant collection of CDs. It's just Spotify now.
Yeah, I love Spotify. That's like all I use now. I use Apple Music too. The only problem is that I was thinking about this today because I was listening to some music, and Spotify does a good job, but the only problem that I think has to be solved is it commodifies the music, right? It's kind of like what happened with online streaming. I don't know who the band is anymore. I kind of don't know anything about the album, and it's just music, and it's just Spotify, and there's like no brand anymore
on some playlist.
Yeah, and that's kind of a shame because you know the musicians are actually the ones. These are small bands putting music out, and you know they need to make a living. And
do you know Panic at the Disco?
Yeah,
they're really good.
Yeah, they are. Is that your Spotify playlist?
Well, only because of my kids. You know, they're like the new gateway to music. Unfortunately, I know who JoJo Siwa is.
I don't know.
She's like a 16-year-old singer, and kids just love her. And you know, she plays whatever she plays. You know, she
like the new Billie Eilish, or
I don't know who Billie Eilish is.
She's a 17-year-old singer.
Oh, really?
That everyone's into.
Wasn't that Justin Bieber like 10 years ago?
Different genre. Billie Eilish is pretty cool. She's off of Giphy, so
okay.
She's like pretty.
She's pretty legit.
Yeah.
Gotcha. She does her own music.
That's the same label that Nirvana was on, and you know a lot of people.
Nirvana was on Geffen?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I never paid attention to labels.
I grew up in Seattle, so like, I went to my first Nirvana show in 1991.
So you were there as that scene was rising.
Yeah, I had really long
age.
Orange hair.
You did?
Yeah.
That's funny. You wore a lot of flannel.
I had some flannel.
That place is still crunchy, dude.
Seattle?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Even their coffee, it feels like they have nuts in their coffee. It's like everything is crunchy there.
I think they do make coffee with nuts in it, but I mean, you have Amazon, you have Microsoft, you have Costco, you have Adobe's there now. You have all these major companies.
I'm not saying that there's not a lot of major companies there. I'm just saying that like it. You know, you go to buy a cup of coffee there, and you can smell the patchouli.
Oh yeah, that's like great though.
It's not a bad thing, but I was really surprised. I'm like, I would have expected Seattle to look like this in the 90s, but it looks like that they really kept that grunge culture there.
Yeah, because everyone that is from the 90s is still there, and everyone's just a little older.
Right.
Like all the same people work at the same coffee shops. They're just like 20 years older now.
That's fun. It's a nice city.
Yeah, I like Seattle a lot. My family still lives there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you go there much?
I try to go there like once a quarter or so. I was trying to go there like once a month. That didn't really work out.
Is that where you started mountain climbing?
Mountain climbing?
Yeah. Rock climbing. Rock climbing and
No,
mountain
I've only-
climbing is the same thing, right?
No, I don't know. Actually, I don't know anything about rock climbing. I just started going like 3 months ago.
Gotcha.
But maybe it's been 6 months ago. But I did climb part of Mount Rainier with my friends when we were 15. We just put snowboards on our back, and we just
Really?
like walked for 5 or 6 hours up this mountain until we got to the base camp, and then all these mountain climbers with all the gear were staring at us, and we were like, we didn't know what we were doing. They're like, "What are you doing here?" We're like, oh,
We don't know.
we just walked.
We bored down.
Yeah.
now?
They're like, "How long did it take you to get here?" We're like, "Oh, we don't know." And then it was like a 3 or 4 hour board down.
Really?
Yeah.
It would strike me that that's a bit dangerous to snowboard down.
Yeah,
Mount
we
Rainier.
found out we found out we almost fell off this glacier. We could have died. It was we were dumb.
I'll say that's like the what was that terrible movie they remade? It was a great movie when we were growing up with Keanu Reeves. Point Break.
Point Break. Great
Yeah.
movie.
Great movie. The second version was absolutely abysmal.
I saw it. It was okay.
I was so
It
disappointed.
was like way more extreme.
You can't do that movie without Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
I'm an FBI agent.
Keanu Reeves is the best.
I'm saying it with feeling.
That guy's still a classic, yeah.
Yeah, he is. John Wick, man. He's
Oh, I
killing
have to
it.
see the third one.
Me too. He had good jujitsu in the second one.
Yeah, he was. Who was he?
Even in the
Hoyler?
first.
Oh, no, he was training with. Was it the Machado brothers? He was training. Like he was
Really?
training with legit.
Yeah, it's the Machado brothers.
Yeah, he was training with legit people. Like his jiu-jitsu is good.
Yeah, he is. I
Yeah.
wonder, is he ranked? You think, or did he just do it for the
I
movies?
think I saw a thing with him where he was wearing a blue belt. I think.
I mean, I was watching him there, and I said, he's actually doing this. Like,
Yeah.
you don't move like that unless
Yeah.
you actually
Yeah.
are a jujitsu person. You
Yeah,
just can't do
he's
it that
good.
way.
Or a really good actor.
Well, he is a really good
Yeah.
actor, but I don't think he's that good.
Maybe not, but he's pretty good.
Yeah. So when they had this snowboarding scene or skiing scene in Point Break 2, do you remember that? And one of the guys was supposed to jump, and then he did, and he died.
Oh, where they had the chase scene in the Alps. Where they're all on snowboards chasing each other.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
one. So that was what you did. You were an absolute lunatic.
Yeah, we
You
were
were
just
15.
dumb. What were we thinking? We were just drinking
Wow.
too much granola in our
Oh.
coffee.
Did you do that? Is that a thing in Seattle? Drinking granola in your coffee?
No, it's just granola's everywhere. So it's everywhere.
Gotcha.
Granola's good.
It is. It's very
From the-
sugary.
Not like natural granola. Like if you're eating granola.
But all it is oats that you bake and you put honey on, isn't it?
Well, if you go
Or
back,
sugar.
like if you're talking like Swiss muesli, which is just grains that you put into a bowl and then you eat.
Which is just terrible, by
Sometimes
the way.
like you don't need to have oats. You can just have like I don't know what the technical definition of granola is, but you just have sometimes it's sunflower seeds and some random things.
I thought it was someone who lived in Seattle. I could be wrong about that.
Maybe, probably right.
I think of muesli as the punishment cereal. That's the cereal that you should eat when you've been really rude to your parents in the morning.
Oh man,
That's how I use it in my house.
Oh, muesli is like the most delicious thing because you can make it. It's like the buffet of breakfast cereal. You can add whatever you want to it.
Fruit Loops. If you could add Fruit Loops to it, I'll have it.
Now,
Otherwise,
there's this
forget it.
startup called I think it's Magic Spoon that is doing healthy versions of Fruit Loops and Count Chocula and all these
Seriously?
cereals. Yeah, I think
I'm
I
in.
think they just raised a lot of money. But
What's their tech solution? Are they putting it on the blockchain?
probably
You could
Everything-
buy a smart contract with Bitcoin.
everything's on the blockchain now.
So you were telling me about the first time that you bought Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was like I think it was 10 years ago. Like I think people remember this. It was the only way. Like the only exchanges were in Eastern Europe, someplace that I could find, and
Exchanges in quotes.
yeah, exchanges. And I knew it was a scam, but whatever. It was like it was $1,000 to a bank in Slovenia. Sent it. And I was like, we'll just see if it works. And they emailed me back a wallet. And I was like, huh. And so then I was like, okay, this is cool. And it is and this is like every like crying story about Bitcoin. I have some amount of Bitcoin, don't know. in some email that's on a hard drive backed up in some of my
Don't
storage.
say where it is.
I have no clue where it is. I probably erased it because I thought it was like whatever. It was
That's
just
really
kind of an
funny.
experiment.
Is that actually how people bought it back then? You would have to actually send
Yeah,
money to a bank
there
in
was
Slovenia,
yeah there was no where did you need an exchange to convert
or a
cash.
person that would do it, I guess, right?
Well, you would have to be able to get that those like either you were granted a bunch because you were a part of the system, or you were working on it in some way, or you had to buy into it, and there was like one exchange that would exchange cash for Bitcoin. Like, yeah, I almost like 99%. It's doesn't
God.
exist.
In the ether.
Yeah, it was back then before you backed up your email. It was just like when you had like, remember back then when you had like 50 email, or like you had
Yes.
50 megs, and then you're
Yes.
just like, this Bitcoin Slovenian thing, do I want to keep it? Delete.
That's just terrible.
I think they say like 40% of Bitcoin is lost, right?
Yeah, 21 million minus 40%, 60% of Bitcoin.
Oh, okay.
I mean, no,
That's
it's
a lot.
supposed to have 21. No, 21 million is the full amount that
Yeah.
you can ever get to.
But it's not all mined yet, right? So
No, it's I forget. 2040 is when the last one's supposed to be minted or something like that.
I think, but then what's the energy consumption for that?
Oh my God.
Is it like 7 times the output of
planet.
the universe?
It's a small sun
Yeah.
somewhere in a
I
far
guess
off
someone-
solar system.
Yeah, I guess someone wasn't really thinking about that, huh?
No, they really weren't. They were. It's such a weird thing when you think about it, because I had someone on here talking about this. I forget who it was, but the fact that it's so consumptive, it requires so much energy, actually safeguards the system.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole point of all of this, right?
You think?
Well, I mean, that's the fallacy. I think the fallacy of Bitcoin is that it's a pure digital currency, but it's not purely digital when you're actually tying it necessarily to physical resources that are scarce. So it's
Okay.
like, okay, so you have this digital currency that you can do whatever with and do a bunch of transactions, but no, you can't, because there's actual physical resources attached to the creation of that currency.
Like
So-
energy, you mean?
Yeah. And so and then, you want this to be a very, if you want to get like political about it a little bit, not political, but
We
like,
talked about politics here.
yeah.
It's okay.
if you have this currency that's supposed to be very like free and open to the world, but then it's tied to an energy source that is fixed. So then who owns most of the energy in the world? Now this currency is no longer a free currency for everyone. It's now controlled by the people who own the production of energy, and those are predominantly state-owned agencies, right? So that's why China and a lot of different states have massive like mining farms put
Right.
up. Who can afford? And now you have who can afford large amounts of energy? People with hydro, nuclear power plants. So now you have basically the first world that are the ones that can have exclusive ownership, because they're the only ones that can possibly mine this.
But you don't have exclusive ownership if you're mining it. The people that hold the
Oh,
wallets
true.
have it.
But you have control of which transactions happen on the blockchain, right?
No, it's the highest bidder.
Yeah, but you're validating it with the mining, right? So
Sure.
you have who gets to validate all of this. So I'm just saying all I'm trying to say is that the control of the system is no longer a distributed control where anyone and everyone can be a part of it. The control is now tied to, because it's tied to a physical IRL kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then that IRL thing has monopoly control by states. Bitcoin is just basically a state kind of controlled entity already.
Well, in some regard, I don't know that it's state controlled, but the state is involved in it, I would say, because the state doesn't really. Well, maybe in China they do, right? But if they mess with it, then it'll lose all its value. So there's an incentive for the state of China to not tank a system that it's invested millions of dollars in, a monetary system.
Now I'm just talking about like the architecture of the engineer, like the system in general. And it's just
Okay.
not the entire architecture of it isn't egalitarian.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, it was like a fundamental flaw, like contradiction to the original. Well, I don't know if it was the original reason why they put it out, but the people who put out the banner of this is going to be a non-state-backed free cryptocurrency, like currency that can be free of all governments, and like the future, it's like, no, governments control energy, and so they control like the validation of a central part in the entire architecture of the system. So
it's true.
Yeah.
It's true, but they can't really prevent the use of energy for Bitcoin.
They can, like,
I guess they could outlaw mining operations, right?
Yeah, and they can. I mean, look, governments outlaw energy use for lots of things. Like, they'll shut down energy for. I mean, there's regulations on lots of things. So, like, weed farms, like, all those people that get shut down, they're like, oh, you're using too much energy. Oh, that's illegal. So they just have to make it a regulation of that's not useful for the society. We'll shut you down.
If you can do that to weed, you can do that to anything.
That's true. It's like, yeah, I that's why I'm like always curious about like all the other coins that are coming out that aren't tied to some kind of proof of work,
You're worried about that?
Or anything that's tied to something that is
other than output or the nonce and that stuff, you mean?
Yeah, anything that's tied to an IRL resource is
what's an IRL resource?
Like energy or some kind of computation or anything that translates to something that requires a limited supply of resources, like for the verification of anything. Then you start getting economies of control where people can control parts of whoever has more of these things can control this, right?
I think so, but what does IRL stand for? The actual
in real life? Where are you from, like the 80s?
Yes. You use it like it's a thing. IRL. People say IRL. That's
Don't
like
you remember
WTF.
TRL?
No.
Total Request Live, like from MTV.
Oh,
IRL.
Yes. Was that Carson Daly who did
that?
that?
Yeah. Jeez.
There we go.
Man.
TRL, IRL, in real life. Okay. I think I understand what you said.
Just like a way to say, for all you old people, like a way to say that this is not digital.
That,
when you're going to meet up with people, IRL, that means not on the internet.
See, and there you go. And I'm not on Facebook, which we'll talk about in a second, I guess. But so I am IRL. Let's say that. I am IRL. I'm so IRL, I don't know what IRL is.
But you're dealing in cryptocurrencies, which are non-IRL currencies.
Well, yes and no, because you could see them on your phone. You could buy stuff with them. Aren't they IRL?
Oh, man, totally didn't get the definition. That's like, on the one thing we were talking about, like Bitcoin, why... I have one other problem, which I'll just state about Bitcoin. Like, not in cryptocurrencies in general, but Bitcoin in general is... the only problem with a decentralized... So, like, I think about, like... I kind of go think about to, like, old Western times, when you had this decentralized currency, gold, that people mined for. And...
That goes back before old Western times.
Well, yeah, okay. I'm just thinking about movies,
right? Because
they
talk about it in the Bible.
I know it goes back to China. And
Moses had exactly.
Yeah. So. I'm just thinking about from Back to the Future mostly.
Back in the old days.
Yeah, this is about as far as I go.
150 years ago in California.
80s movies. You had these miners. They dug up gold. It's non-centralized. And then, they're exchanging, it's like none of the governments are back. This is like a currency that floats and everyone's able to trade it.
Right.
It's like it seems like very similar to the goals of Bitcoin and crypto.
It is.
But then, like, what happened? Like, why aren't we just trading gold? And then like, if every time you see why I tied it to like Western and says like, there's a bank heist, or people are like, let's go get the miners. And I think the one thing that all the Bitcoin people don't, I mean, I'm sure they realize, but I think it's a lot more serious is if it's not the only reason that anything works is, why did you put your gold in banks? You put your gold in banks not because of the insurance, because they didn't really insure back in the old West days. They didn't really insure it, but they had guns
And safes.
Yeah, well, safes too, and guns. But like they would bank rob the safe, and then what they would do is send the army to go get your gold back. And so the problem with all the cryptocurrencies is no one has the means of like states.
Or Pinkertons, by the way.
Pinkertons were
Bush Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. The Pinkertons came after him at the end. And the Mexican army.
Yeah. Right. So like states have a monopoly of violence, right? Like that means like they have the right to use violence legally to get these to get your money back. Other than that, like if you lose your Bitcoin, like government doesn't care because it's not government backed. So like unless someone creates a private Bitcoin army that will come, which someone probably is going to do. I think that's called Halliburton or
Isn't there a Ripple army somewhere?
Yeah.
What does the Ripple army do? Do they do that?
I don't know, but I'm sure someone is creating a decentralized armed force to come arbitrate trade on the blockchain to get your money back if someone robs you. And then, so then now you build this thing. Okay, now in order to promote trade, you have to get more security. Then there's rules between the trading partners, and now you have a state. And now you're back decentralized.
That's true, because people want to be able to get their lost money, right?
Yeah, and that is that's like you could almost argue, one of the reasons why the United States exists as a republic is because the trading rules between states had to be unified so that people could have free trade among the states. The government was always built around ensuring these rights so that people could trade freely around and ensuring that the authenticity and the security of the system of trade. And so if you just
it was also for protection.
Yeah, the protection, right? Like
it's primarily so that the Queen of England wouldn't station troops in your house.
Oh, true. Well, that's for like the political reason of like getting, but why did people want in the US, like all the trade routes that were set up and all these rules? The government was always about ensuring that people could trade. Even, the whole taxation thing was all about trade of tea. And
that's true. Taxation without representation, you mean?
Yeah, it was just like being taxed for trade reasons and getting, they're trading with you, but you have not favored tax status. So in that, my whole point there is Bitcoin, blockchain, currencies, someone has to solve the security problem. It's the same reason why we put gold in banks and governments back them. And we paid taxes so that governments would protect the bank, and then our banks were available in multiple states, and then governments secured the backing with violence, or I should say with military security forces, all the banks so that I could go through any state and transact.
Right.
So who is going to protect all of the crypto when states don't do that? And they're the only ones that can legally own weapons.
That's not true.
That's true. That's not true. Not in the U.S.
thing called the Second Amendment.
Yeah. But at
don't
scale.
Like it, but yeah, no, but that's the purpose of the Second Amendment.
I should say that's true. I should say legally for enforcing transactions. Like if you go to some place and you try to enforce someone's Bitcoin transaction, that's not seen as valid legal standards in the U.S.
That's called the jail sentence. A quick one.
Yeah.
That's true.
So yeah, what's the solve for that? Do you know what's going on in the world to do that? Like
to be able to get your Bitcoin back if it's stolen?
Yeah, like I'm afraid for all of you. Remember like that article came out about all those guys that were moving to Puerto Rico because they were Bitcoin billionaires, and there was a picture of like 5 or 6 of them on the front cover of the New York Times, and I was like, oh man,
I wouldn't want to be on that cover.
Yeah, that's like posting winning the Powerball. It's like, what are you doing?
They place a target right on my head and tell everyone the state that I'm living in.
Yeah, and then there's no, but the problem is like Powerball, at least the government backs that, right? Like the government, it's like state run, so the government, like the police will show up, But
Yeah.
I don't know what the rules are if someone steals your Bitcoin wallet.
Well, that's why all the libertarians like it, because the government is not involved. They want the government out of their money. I mean, that's
Oh man, I want like why do I want the government involved? Like I'll give you a case in point. So my friend was and I totally respect the government for this, like lots of reasons, but for this one reason is my friend was hiking in Kashmir, and it was it was like 15 years ago. It was during like there was like some political
instability.
yeah going on, and
We'll call it.
they had to get out, and the Marines came and took everyone out. And then he was with a bunch of Norwegians and like French people, and he was like, "When is your government's coming?" And they were like, "What are you talking about? Our government? No, we have to hike out." Like the American
Can
government.
I borrow those shoes?
Yeah, the American we do such a good job of protecting the citizens. Sometimes, most of the time, hopefully,
Yeah.
like ideally, that the government will come in and save you. That's like the biggest insurance policy ever. I think that's like, I mean, ideally, in those cases, there's other cases where, yeah,
The other side is that the government will come and arrest you and put you
Yeah.
in jail.
that happens too.
It
But
does.
the ideal of it is supposed to be this situation, right? And so the point being that I
The point being, you're a democratic socialist. Did you just come out?
no,
Democratic
I'm like
Socialist on
not
this
affiliated
podcast.
political party. I don't understand.
I'm making a joke between them and libertarians, because that's the other end of the spectrum, right? Libertarians don't want that protection. We're big boys and girls. We can handle ourselves.
No.
You leave me to my private keys. You leave me to my money and just get out. And then the other side of that is, well, hold on. The government actually protects us. They give us services. You know, they're the police. They pull me out when there's a fire, and they back our banks, and that gives us a lot of support, and we like that.
Yeah, I think in some cases, like I think everyone is going to have their position on what's good or bad, but ultimately, like I think the government is there to provide services at scale that you couldn't do, right? Healthcare, ideally, would be like one case, or military or roads.
I would say military
infrastructure.
more than healthcare, because when you look at, it's the one thing that the governments are really good at doing is military, right?
Yeah, ideally they would be good
Police.
at healthcare too, but we just haven't gotten there yet.
Well, but when a ton of people come from Canada to the U.S. to pay for
Sure.
their own surgeries because it takes so long just to get an MRI. Same thing in the U.K. They have a special type of healthcare that will allow
Oh,
you to
yeah.
purchase your own personal insurance so you can actually get service.
So I'm not talking about the implementation of it, just ideally as a service that could be provided. Forget about the inefficiencies of everything. It's just like, hey, if we are in a community of people, like we should have a doctor in the town. That's kind of
Yes.
like,
That part is true.
yeah,
We
like
should have
just
a doctor in
like
town.
we should have a doctor. So like we should bring in a doctor and pay for the doctor as part of the community. Imagine if we had a small town and there were no doctors, and one doctor came in, and we're like, hopefully a doctor will show up.
It's like the Wild West.
Yeah, totally.
The Old West.
Yeah, and everyone died of tooth decay back then.
It's funny how that can happen.
Yeah, it's like I was reading how that's like one of the major causes of death back in the day, dentistry. Who knew? Because like if your tooth decays, it's so close to your brain
Mhm.
that you get an infection and then it goes right to your
To your
brain,
brain.
and then you're dead, like from a tooth. And so
That's amazing.
yeah, I was like, oh man, I really love my dentist.
I think I'm going to go give my dentist a hug next time I see him. and
saving your
thank
life,
him.
millions and millions of lives every day.
But apparently the plaque in your teeth gets into your bloodstream and can help cause heart disease. Like there's actually a link. I thought that was a
Oh.
joke,
Oh,
but it's
yeah.
apparently true.
Man, we're like not meant to be alive, huh? It's like everything is meant.
There's a lot of reasons for us to be dead,
yeah.
let's say.
Yeah.
None the least of which is climbing halfway up Mount Rainier and trying to snowboard it down.
Well done.
Did you snowboard on a glacier, by the way? Did you actually
Did snowboard on a glacier? Yeah, I fell off of it and I slid like 300 feet, and then I was sliding and I had to take my board off my feet and then stop myself and then hike back up. It took me half an hour up, and then I looked on the map to see where it was, and it was like I was like a good couple thousand feet still away, but it was like a big cliff. I was like not the smartest thing I ever did.
Wow. That's a great story.
I don't know. I'm alive, so it's a good story if you're alive.
Yeah.
But you know what? Someone would have probably flown in and picked me up if I did.
It's America.
That's amazing. America's like so good that way. Like people will come save you.
It's true.
Yeah, I've traveled around a bit, and like there are lots of countries where no one will come save you.
Really?
And that sucks.
Really?
Yeah, people are just like, it's on your own.
You mean because it's too far away? Like they won't save you. You're right there, and you're gonna fall off a cliff, and they just won't go to you. Or
No,
you
they're
just
not
can't
gonna.
get the
They're not
people
gonna.
out?
They're not gonna send like a Navy helicopter to come pick you up.
Right.
Yeah,
That's true.
it takes a lot of money and resources. It's probably, and you're just like hanging out on a snowboard.
Did you see Cliffhanger?
Yeah.
They did that in Cliffhanger.
Oh, they did. Yeah.
They had their
that was
own
pretty
rescue
cool.
people.
Yeah, supposedly when he was climbing, it was real. Like he was hanging off by one arm.
Yeah, with a backpack on.
That's crazy.
Like not a backpack, a parachute.
Oh, he had a parachute?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, dude, that's terrifying. You could give me a parachute. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, that's true. I wouldn't do it
That's
either.
it.
Afraid of heights.
You know, that's the perfect reason that you would hire a stuntman or just fake it.
Yeah.
You know, it's reasonable to fake that movie, but man, those scenes were like the scenes they had of him climbing on the mountain and hanging with one hand, like that was terrifying.
Yeah. I don't want to do that.
No. Apparently, there's a ton of people now that do that kind of climbing without any ropes.
Oh yeah, like Alex Arnold. I mean,
that's
you're
the
just
guy.
you're just like you're on trend now. Like you're caught up to pop culture. Free Solo just came out like not too long ago and won an Academy Award.
It did. But I get all of my pop culture from Joe Rogan's podcast.
Oh
so
yeah,
that's why I don't know what ILR is.
IRL. IRL, dude.
I'm gonna wear that as a badge of pride.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's like LOL. Like
I know LOL.
okay,
It's
cool.
hard to screw that one up.
Yeah, it's about the same.
Right. My kids screw it up all the time though.
Yeah,
They would use it in the wrong way.
it's probably not cool anymore.
No, it's definitely not.
Yeah, it's I don't even. Yeah, I'm like I don't know. I don't think anyone uses that too much anymore.
No.
Moved on.
Well,
It's like groovy or I don't know. Sure, what other words old people use anymore?
groovy. It's true. No one uses groovy anymore.
Yeah, these programmers called the groovy was an interpreted Java language that got pretty popular for a little bit. It was supposed to be Ruby's answer or Java's answer to Ruby, and it just had an unfortunate name.
So no one liked it, huh? Is that why they were just like?
That's why I didn't use it. I was just like, I just can't say this groovy thing.
Seriously?
Yeah, I was like, if I have to say groovy all the time, it just sounds dumb.
You're no different. So groovy is your Game of Thrones. It's your My Game of Thrones.
No, because I
Just
know
kidding.
what it was. I've tried it out, and I didn't like it. Versus,
But
I have
you
no clue what's going on.
You don't like it because of the name.
Oh, you don't like Game of Thrones because of the name?
No, I don't like Game of Thrones because of South Park.
Oh,
that's the same thing.
That's a little different.
It's the same.
You got ruined by a cartoon.
I did.
That's
It's
so
ruined a couple
weird.
of things for me.
Yeah.
I have to be careful of that. Had I watched it before, I would have been good. I know it.
Try it again. It's like watching Lost again. You're like, whoa, Lost is pretty good.
I heard the end stunk though.
And Lost?
Yeah.
Yeah, the last couple seasons pretty much useless.
But the last episode apparently was really bad.
Yeah.
Did it happen in someone's mind or something like that?
No, it was like it's like a weird purgatory kind of thing, and it wasn't that interesting.
Yeah.
Like, how are you gonna wrap up Lost? I mean, they had to wrap it up in something.
It was like Stephen King's what is it? The Drawing of the 3-1, the Watchtower series.
Oh yeah, good book series.
Yeah, it was great. I read all 7 of them,
Yeah.
and I was really disappointed at the end.
I did.
But
I
I
got way
thought-
further on, and then I just saw the first movie, Dark Tower.
Yeah. Oh, that's a movie now?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I got to see that.
Yeah.
That's
The
cool.
movie was pretty good. It didn't do well.
No?
Yeah.
Well, unless you have Gary Sinise in the stand, that's not going to do well, right?
Maybe not.
So, all right. Let's talk about Facebook's Libra.
Facebook's Libra, yes.
Cryptocurrencies that are being developed for messenger apps, let's say, right? Libra, Kick, whatever else you want to talk about. So you're in the messaging world, I guess, in Giphy, right?
Yep.
Do you see those having an impact on cryptocurrency or the cryptocurrency community? What's your take on them?
Yeah, I think so. We talked about this a little bit earlier. I think you have,
but we didn't tape it. So.
Oh yeah, we didn't. So, damn, can't remember anything anymore. I do think you have, if you're, like, you have 3 possible players. So if you want to create a worldwide global cryptocurrency, you kind of have 3 different players that can do this. You either have governments, because they already back currencies, so they can get together and do this digital version of the currency system that they already have. And they have, again, the means of security, legal security and military security to back it. So, but they're also super inefficient doing this kind of stuff. So that's and everyone's trying to do something else. You can have the financial institutions that are kind of the other non-governmental organizations that can all get together and create a financial system to do it, but they're really bad at technology, so they're never going to be able to get the tech right to be able to do it, even though they control all of the transactions. Or you have Facebook, who has all the tech, is going to be the best at creating the technology because they just have massive scale, and if they can get the financial people and the governments to play, then they could possibly create a worldwide cryptocurrency that is used at scale. I think the alternates are those, if you bet on one of them, Facebook's probably someone that could do it, but there's a lot of hurdles. I mean, they have a lot of smart people that I know working on it, so it's not a lack of engineering. It's more, can they get at their scale financial institutions and governments along with them. But if those don't happen, then you have outsiders that can come in and create, like Kick and Kin or some of the other players in the space that can come in and open take over lots of the system, because being so large and trying to create something so big may be hard to do. It's kind of my take on it. Who knows? That's kind of like how it's going to go.
Yeah, I'm somewhat skeptical about these large companies that are really social media companies really being able to do something that's cryptocurrency, because, and this is just my own, I don't have any real reason to back it up, but just from what I've seen, you've got a company that big is not really going to be nimble. They're going to have all sorts of issues in creating many, many different aspects of it. And they have the community, or they have a large community, but you need a community that's really enthusiastic about a cryptocurrency in order for it to really gain adoption and use. At least that's what I've seen. I mean, the Bitcoin diehards, people that are posting, go long Bitcoin. Bitcoin is great. They make all these comparisons. There's this core community, and each one of the cryptocurrencies that seems to be trading and the people are using has something like that. I just don't see Facebook doing that. Maybe Kick can do that. I don't know if they can get past some of the regulatory hurdles.
So I think I kind of take the opposite view, where I think being you want, in order for a cryptocurrency to take off, I think it has to be invisible. It has to not even be about the currency. I don't use dollars because I think that dollars look cool. Come
on, you can turn George Washington's head into a mushroom.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
That's
third grade.
totally cool.
That you remember?
I'm dating myself.
There is nothing about the currency that is actually interesting for me. That if it was about the currency, then we would all probably hang out in the Caribbean, because they have crazy money, right?
Right.
It has seashells on it. Looks really cool. But it really has to be the only mass adoption you're going to have is when it purely becomes utility and invisible. Currency is invisible. It should be, because it's not about the currency. Currency is just transaction mechanisms
for other. Buy with it, right?
Yeah, it's about transacting for other things. It's just it's a protocol for which we can transact securely, which seems like what crypto should be able to do.
It's a very engineer-like way to think about it, but it's actually true.
Yeah, and that's what it was designed for. So that's why, like, if you think about Facebook, what they have is they have a bunch of people that are doing things on their platform, and you have...
Are you on Facebook?
Yeah, who's not on Facebook?
I'm not on Facebook. Okay, I'm on Facebook, but I don't log on anymore.
Yeah, Facebook, like every social network. I'm on every social network. They all have their uses.
Are you on Twitter?
Yep, been on since 2006.
But you're not on LinkedIn.
No, not on LinkedIn.
See, that's the most
I don't
professional one.
Yeah, but I'm not that professional. Posting my resume, and I just get like spammed all day.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for someone like you, I wouldn't want to be on LinkedIn because you're just going to get a billion emails. You don't get them on Twitter?
People ask me, sometimes I get job requests. They're like, hey, we have this great position for like, and I'm like...
They're asking you to go to their company?
They're trying to headhunt me to a different company. I'm like, I kind of got this thing I have to do.
That's really funny.
Yeah, which happens all the time. So
man, people have cojones, huh?
I think they're all automated bots.
Really?
Yeah, that just like fill in your name.
They're probably like just, like Russian fraudsters sending you pictures of pretty girls so you can give them your money and then they'll take everything they can for you.
That's right. You got some history with this.
No, that's what they do. Isn't that what happens?
I don't know. I don't get those emails and don't reply to them.
It's funny. I saw someone retweeted a tweet that I had, and I was like, oh, who is this person? And it was clearly an account that they had like 10 tweets and 30 followers, and it was not a real person. So,
Yep.
I mean, I just found that I was like, why would not a real person retweet something that I have? Like, just didn't make any sense to me. So, anyway.
Gain following, get traction.
Oh, the non-real people? Oh, okay.
Or topple the universe or the country.
That's right.
Force the election.
They're going to install a Russian president.
Yeah. Ugh. Anyway, so I feel like, if you have everyone on the internet on your platform, and Facebook is really good at technology. Like they have a mass army of engineers. They can build anything. Like they can build. Like think about how many companies can build things in the world from a technology point of view that everyone in the world can use at scale, that can be distributed everywhere. That's like an impossible thing to do.
Right. I get you could count those companies on your hand. It's like Google, Amazon, Facebook.
Well, Amazon's not even worldwide.
Twitter.
I mean, AWS is pretty big, but they don't hit, 2 billion people every day.
Yeah, but anyone that wants to buy anything in Europe, in the U.S., maybe not China.
Yeah, not in Asia right now. It's not a thing.
Well, I don't know that they'll ever get in there with Alibaba, right? That's like Alibaba's world.
But you're right. There's like a handful of people that can really do
Barnes and Noble.
do really any of this. So if you're gonna do they have the people, the distribution, and they have the technology. The question will be, do they have a reason for people to use it? I do like, the kinfolk right now they're doing they have a lot of different use cases for people transacting on their network, and it's like one of the largest transacted cryptocurrencies out right now. And that's because they've kind of gone the other way of, hey, we're going to build the reasons for people to transact, and people are going to transact, and the currency just is kind of invisible. So, yeah, I think ultimately it's like, how do you make the currency invisible to the largest group of people? And if you can do that, and it's super easy, and people do it, then there'll be a whole cryptocurrency in the world. If not, it's going to be very hard.
You don't think that Bitcoin is already that? I mean, isn't Bitcoin...
How many people transact on Bitcoin? It's like not even used, really.
It's too expensive, you're right.
Yeah,
or it's too valuable.
Yeah, no one transacts in it. It's like, I'm trying to think about, like, what is the number one case for Bitcoin transactions? Like, nothing. It's just speculation at this point. People transacting on what?
But it's always been that.
But the whole dream was that every day we could be using this as the way that we transact on everything. It just never really happened.
That's kind of cute when you think about that. It's like, when it jumps to 20,000 in from what was it? What was the big jump? Was it from 4 to 20?
Oh yeah, there's a huge jump.
I mean, it was from October of 2017 to the beginning of January of 2018. That was the huge. But I forget when that started. Maybe it started in May of 2017 or something like that. It started to really kind of get bigger and bigger. I don't know what that jump was, but it was massive.
Yeah, that was all speculation though, right? That wasn't utility. People weren't transacting in it for actual use of the coin.
Right.
Like it's just kind of like currency speculation versus we're actually trading goods, and the goods are the currency is like the proxy for the goods. And so I don't see any cryptocurrencies being used for any meaningful transactions right now. Like kin is probably the most transacted thing right now. So
for what? What are people using it for?
So they're using it a lot for microtransactions in the app and for their developer network.
To buy Pokemon cards?
It's exactly what Facebook is doing for you. You watch an ad, you get some people will buy like creative goods from people, stickers, other things, and then trade them. So
yeah, but I don't know that watching an ad, I mean, you need to actually be working to get it.
Well, watching an ad is working.
Yeah, not really.
Not
from a regulatory perspective. It really.
Oh yeah,
isn't.
I don't know anything about the regulation side, but
a lot of the things are being. Everything is kind of being written now. So pretty much anyone that's innovating is taking a risk, and that's the truth. It's not like we can say, all right, you have to be working for it. It has to be earned, and what constitutes earned. But there is precedent out there that's saying that, it needs to actually be work. It has to be something. It can't just be that you get it just for like watching an ad is arguably not work.
Well, yeah, so that was just
maintaining. And I'm not saying that that's what they're doing.
I'm not saying that that's what they're doing either. I was just speculating on the types of things that they do. The things I do know.
They're paying the developers.
Well, the things that I do know is like anyone who's putting like creative works out.
Mm-hmm.
Like users are, I think their notion is let users, developers figure out what the transaction mechanisms are, and there'll be transactions happening on this stuff. Some people will make goods, like stickers or other digital objects, and other people will buy them, and then the economy will work. Where anything that's happening digitally that has transactions will kind of build the economy up. Specifics of what's going on with every developer, don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah. I'm not asking you for anything granular. I was just curious, like what people are actually doing on that network with the money.
Oh, I think it's just transacting to other transactions, right?
Gotcha.
Like this is like a digital currency for digitally create native goods. It's not like a real world doll. Like you're not making money off of it. You're transacting digitally for it. So it's like I think that's the difference between Facebook's. There's all these, what are they calling them? Like soft coins, what do they call those?
Stable coins?
Yeah, that are tied to that are actually backed by currency. Those are like a different breed of coins, right?
Right.
And those are, you have this kind of semi-guarantee that you can liquidate those at a certain time.
Right. It's like when the dollar was in the gold standard before, was it 1970s when I think Nixon took it off. You could technically go and exchange your dollar for gold. That was
That'd be
the
cool.
theory. I know, right?
We should get like box of gold. But then, like, where are you gonna put it? You gotta put.
I know that. You gotta go to a bank and put it in a bank.
Yeah, exactly. Because then the NYPD will show up if someone robs you.
Yeah. Can you imagine walking around with a gold bar?
No. That's why that's like when people walk around with Bitcoin wallets. I'm like, that's like walking around with gold bars in your pocket, like on your cell phone.
You got to be just certifiably crazy to do that.
Yeah, that's why you're like, okay, I got this wallet, I'm gonna put it in my safe. Okay, you're gonna put gold bars in your safe at home? That seems dumb too.
And you know what the Winklevoss brothers did, right? They took all of their wallets, they wrote them down, and they put them in bank vaults all over the place. That's the funny thing, right? It's like if you really want it to be safe, go to a bank, put it there.
Yeah, which is like total, like goes back to the beginning of like, it begs the question of what the philosophical argument for all of this
It's
was.
like, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah, we're just going back to banks, which ultimately will always go back to banks.
Like, wonderful. You created this new cryptocurrency, and you have a wallet, and it's yours, and the government can't touch it. But it's really valuable, so where are you going to put it? In a bank.
Yeah.
I thought we didn't need those anymore. What happened?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a split between the philosophical reasons why people do these and the actual. I think what will be useful is when, forget about all of that, but when does it become actually useful? Like, when does it make transactions faster and easier and more transparent?
Well, that's the thing. MasterCard is like, I don't know how many thousands of transactions per second, but Bitcoin is like 10. And I think Ether is either 30 or 100, but it's even if it's 1,000, it's significantly less than what Visa can handle. So it's going to be a while.
Yeah, and most of the currency architectures are such that they can't scale at those mass transactions. That's why like no one can switch over their entire network over to a cryptocurrency right now, because no one can handle those kind of transaction volumes. So it's like, okay, so it's not really useful for as a replacement. So what can you use it for? And you have to find these niche things which no one's really using. That's why I feel like if you're gonna have to build your own blockchain, and it's gonna have to be backed by lots of different people. If you can do that, then you have a shot.
That's called BYOB now, right?
Is that what it's called?
ILR?
IRL.
Build your own blockchain.
Yeah. Well, it
By
is.
the way, TM, I just trademarked that.
Nice. That is pretty good.
This is a creative endeavor, man.
Yeah,
you know?
You should start a club. If you know,
we could do that. You want to start a company called BYOB, Build Your Own Blockchain?
Not really. I only like cursorily look at. You're in this world. I'm like, it's a scary world.
It is.
Yeah. I don't want to deal with it until it's stabilized. It's too scary for me.
It's exciting. I mean, you'll send $1,000 to Slovenia, so.
Yeah, that was fun. I just lost
risky.
it. Yeah, I know. I could totally use that money. Pay my rent. So I do think like, there's going to be, when do we find the perfect use case for when? One of these cases, I think nonprofits, like international nonprofits, it's very hard to track sometimes the where all the donations go.
Yeah.
And so I can see like public companies that or government companies, or you want to have auditing of where the transactions are happening. That's like a perfect case where, hey, this is open to everyone can see it, there can be third-party validation of all of this. It's all on the blockchain. Like, there has to be lots of use cases that we can use this for.
I think that's why everyone's so damned excited about it.
Yeah, we just need to do it versus, there's the philosophical reasons of why we're going to do it, because it's ultimately going to come back down to banks again anyway.
I know. I love that. I mean, I think it's just the funniest thing. It's like, okay, you've got this wallet, you've got this whole system, it's your own money, but you need to safeguard it. It only exists digitally, so how do you do that? Put it in cold storage and take that thing, that thumb drive or that hard drive or whatever it is, and put it in the bank. There's just nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing funnier than that.
And then, if you look at Libra, they have the organization of like 100 companies that are allowed to validate the blockchain.
And you have to pay $10 million for that, right?
Yeah, and so this kind of sounds very similar to banking charters, where okay, you have a certain number of banks that are allowed to be banks, and you have to buy into it, and then now you can issue through regulation and votes from this banking institution, which is all of these multinational companies, right?
Yeah.
And so like you just kind of like created another bank. Like
you created a cartel.
Yeah. And then what happens is, there's hopefully there's lower interest rates, but the interest rates right now are just set by governments, right? Like the Fed just sets this interest rate. So I have no reason why credit card interest rates are like 13, 15%. Like that seems weird. It's just like everyone kind of got together and made this interest. Why isn't there like a 1% above like prime like credit card? Just like not financially viable, right?
It's true. Well, the closest you have to that is a cash card like Amex, right? But you're not borrowing. Your float is 30 days.
Yeah. So.
And then when you don't pay it, it's like 28% interest.
Yeah.
You know, you can.
And so
you're like, oh yeah, you can turn this into a credit card. It's only 17% interest.
So I'm curious as to when a controlled. I'm just curious to see like if a controlled alternate banking system takes over all of the transactions in the world, that the fee structure is very small at first, but if that slowly creeps up to what has been kind of this marketplace for interest rates, like what is to stop a group of non-elected companies to just fluctuate the interest rates at some point?
I mean, you would then have governments imposing law saying they couldn't do it. But that's the thing.
And then you would just change all the bank names now instead of like
Face Bank.
Yeah, exactly. Like Bank of America is just like Face Bank
Facebook
of America.
is now Face Bank
of America.
That's right, Face Bank of America. That sounds like a.
So I don't see what anyone's like really innovating except for the transparent. Or you can like the one way to, if banks, this is, I actually don't think this would work because I'm just making it up right now, but if the banks just published all of their transactions on a public ledger, like would that just kill blockchain right there? They're like, hey, we're already doing the transactions. We have the technology to do it at scale.
Here's a wallet.
Yeah, here's your wallet, your bank account, and it's anonymized. And now we're just going to publish all of this privately to the internet, every transaction, and then done.
If they put it into a black box, right, so that it would, your name and your account information would go in, and then it would just spit out, a wallet address with a randomly assigned private key. Boom, you're done. You're right. They could do that. But, Facebook having its own currency, I find to be fairly terrifying because it is a terribly liberal organization that actively prevents people with viewpoints that they disagree with from doing things. And I don't like that. I think that that's really bad. Facebook, Twitter, and so what I don't want is a monetary system that has a political bias at all. Well, and that's my concern with a lot of the tech companies doing that.
Compared to what though? Like compared to every government in the world?
Yeah, but those change. But the governments change. We have Democratic run governments, and then we have
you're talking about
Republican-run governments.
A global monetary system with a bunch of different countries that have different political stances controlling the monetary system of the world, right?
Yes.
You have China,
you
have the U.S., you have, Japan has you have Germany, all the major currencies in the world. And they all have different political stances. So
they do, but I guess what you're saying, but Facebook would be the one running it. It seems like.
Well, they have that vote right now where it's 100 different companies, right?
Right.
So they're trying to get 100, and everyone has a vote. So
they're trying to get 100. They're trying to get $1 billion. One of the two, right? Or maybe it's both.
Yeah, but I see what you're saying. I think ultimately what you're saying is having one centralized control of something
a world currency.
Yeah, is scary, and my response is is that already kind of what we have right now? In essence, there's only a small group of countries that actually control most of the currency in the world. So it's why is everyone freaking out about these trade talks right now? It's because this is actually affecting people's lives because of the currency rates, right?
I think
China just dropped a bunch of I think it's the lowest part of U.S. debt that they've ever had in 10 years or so. There's all this stuff coming around, and it's going to be you might as well just replace Facebook with some country.
Tariffs are good. Trademarks are good. I like trade wars. It's very, very good. It's great.
Yeah, man.
But you know, people are
but-
freaking out because people are freaking out. People have been freaking out since the 2016 election. Like no matter everyone just freaks out right now, and I think that's actually because of Twitter and Facebook. I do. I think that it's just so easy to freak out about stuff now.
Well, I mean, someone just published a study about how, you know, the fear mechanism is much easier than the safety mechanism, which makes sense because back in the day, like
a lion will eat you.
Yeah, you should be totally afraid.
Right.
And so it's,
you think you see a lion, you better run fast.
Yeah, it's easier to incite fear in people than it is to to make people feel at home.
Yeah.
And so,
or to motivate them from a good perspective.
So the
fear is the great motivator.
Yeah. So the question is, you know, how do you, when you give, this is just a fundamental prop. You know, it's like, you know, like Tragedy of the Commons, right? Like when you give everyone a vote or everyone a say, how do you stop abuse of that? You know, how do you if you have a public park, and this is happening in Seattle right now, where everyone has the access to it, which is great theoretically, but in practicality, like,
you got people living in those parks.
Well, it's just like there's too many people. It can't handle that many people. Then the park ends up getting destroyed. So the question is going to be like, you have so many voices. How do you sift through that? I think it's a problem that everyone's trying to figure out right now. But it's like you either give everyone a voice.
Number.
Yeah, 150.
That's right.
Yeah, you either give everyone a voice or you don't give everyone a voice. And so it's like, it's a hard problem. You know, I think through it too. It's like, is there inherent problems with the ability to give mass a voice to everyone in the world? Is there an inherent problem with the system of which creates, like, will you always have these problems, basically?
Yeah,
like,
of course you will.
And so
we've never not had them.
Yeah. And then then the question is it worse now than it was before?
No, it's 1,000 times better. We've nearly eliminated world poverty. I mean, the amount of people that can live on $1.91 has like more than halved in the last decade.
So I think
we're doing great. We're doing awesome.
Well, all right.
Got a hiccup there? You need some water?
Still, there's a lot of work to do, but the question really is like, you know, how do we make things better? And like with all of I think one of the, you know, the goals of, if you don't want Facebook to own it all, which is like a legitimate concern, right? You have to, if they publish, and it's going to be open sourced, if multiple people can come into the system and create their own alternate backing of it, then you have multiple banks, and then you have competition again.
And then it's not Face Bank.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Then you have lots of banks.
Right.
And then you have your credit unions, and I think that's ultimately the goal of any of this should be it's a fundamental value here, right? Like we don't like monopolies in the US because they stifle innovation, competition, and just ultimately contain too much power. So the question is, you know, how do you create a digital currency that isn't a monopoly? And if you can solve that, then that's cool. And then the same thing with platforms for like social media platforms in general. You know, how do you create enough diversity in voices to never be a mono voice in the world? They're
working on that now. There's something called ThinkSpot that's being put out that seems interesting. If you want to comment, at least right now, it's like your comment has to be at least 50 words. So you can't just like, you know, what do they call it?
Like one word response?
S-posting. I don't curse on this podcast. So, you know, like you can't, you know, you can curse, by the way, but I don't. So, so, you know, you could, I think it's called crap posting. Well, you know, SHIT posting, we'll say.
Yeah.
And all that. They, you know, you rip on people with like 3 words and that's it. It has to be thoughtful.
That's like Christmas at my family's. Like I just don't want to read anything my family has to write about anything. I don't know why. Yeah, I just don't read any of that stuff. So I filter out most of that.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of hate tweets? People like Giphy, God damn you.
Oh, I'm sure all the time.
Chung.
I just don't listen to it anymore. It's just 50% really good, 50% really bad, and
Right.
it's always going to be that way, which is a weird thing for society. Like you think, but I guess that's just how we're built.
Yeah.
But I think if the question will be like, how do you? Yeah, I still like it's a hard thing because like, how do you allow the voice to be there, but without
The crazy.
having it eat your soul?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like the hard part. The internet's like such a messed up place right now. It's like not become fun. It used to be fun in the 90s, but now it's just like become Vegas.
Back when you would dial up on your telephone.
Yeah, it used to be like really fun and everyone was cool and like running around, and now it just feels like this weird place where everyone's trying to make a buck and there's slot machines everywhere and like everyone's just like making back corner deals and you don't know if you're going to get beat up on. It's like New York in the 80s. It's
Yeah,
just
that's
like,
right. It is. It's like taking
yeah.
the subway in the 80s.
Yeah. And what, how did they clean that up? It was like
Jail. Right?
Yeah.
Cops had to come and arrest people.
There is no internet jail.
No, there is. You get deplatformed, right? That's internet jail.
Yeah.
One of these big platforms deplatform you.
Then you just make another username and you come back in. Like
It's true. Although they're pretty good at figuring that stuff out. But yeah.
Cell phone burners, like everyone does it.
Right, yeah. It's really big in the development community, cell phone burners, right?
I mean, everyone has, like, you need multiple cell phones. Like,
No, you don't. What do you
because,
need multiple cell phones for?
well, you have your cell phone, right?
Yeah.
And my cell phone number is just public everywhere at this point, so like I don't care. Like I've had it for like 20 years. But if you're the right way to do it is to have your cell phone that no one has except for a few people, and then have proxy cell phones that you actually give to other people. A lot of people do this with Google Voice numbers, and that proxy into it. So that way, if you are moving or you need to change or you get spammed, you kill that one. This is actually like people have been doing this for forever, especially for SMS and.
Really? That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's the same system that Apple's now putting into their credit card, right? Or sorry, their emails. They're doing proxy emails, so that when you do registrations, they just announced at WWDC. When you're doing registrations, they're giving you fake email, auto-generated email addresses so that you can register, but keeping your actual email private. And so people have been doing this in the developer community forever. So that way, if someone gets compromised, you can just kill that proxy without actually giving your real info.
That's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah.
You guys are smart, you developers.
Yeah. People have been doing it forever. I like everyone has like hundreds of email addresses and
Well, how do you keep track of them though?
Huh?
How do you keep track of all the email addresses you have?
Well, usually you have like
A database?
well, Google has you can just do a plus and you can have all your Googles head up. So you can have one Google email and then do +1, +2, +3 or plus whatever, and that all gets proxied into. This has been there since Gmail started.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so you can have 100 different emails, and so you can track. It used to be a way to encode where you put that in. So I'll have different ones for the accounts I've set up.
Right.
So that way I can kill that one and not kill all of them at once if I change my email. But what you do is you have well, there's a couple different ways. But for me, like I just have a bunch of email, and I pretty much have them all in one account, like that is
They'll
syncing
feed
them all.
to one?
Yeah, and then they'll all proxy into one. I have a bunch of emails. I don't even know what they are anymore because they just come in through one, and then I'll just kill it.
Oh. It sounds like a lot of work, though.
No, you just start up an email address, and then you just have it forward, and then you just kill it. But someone should create that email service. Apple's kind of doing it, but someone else should do it. But you can also do it for credit cards. I don't know why no one's doing it for credit cards. Right now, like I'd like a credit card that has proxy credit card numbers so that I never have to actually give up. Because every time I lose my credit card, I'm like...
It's like zero knowledge proofs.
I don't know what that is. Oh, zero
knowledge proofs. You can prove something without having to provide any actual information. So it'd be like, here, I'm paying
weird.
with my credit card, but you don't have my credit card number. But here it is, and then you have the money.
Wait, how does that even work? That seems like not right. That seems like something shady you do down like in Washington Square Park.
Yeah, that's true. Certainly,
and you
back
take
in
someone's
the 90s,
money.
Yeah. Well, it's really the prime example is if you want to go to a bar and you want to prove that you're 21, but you don't want the bouncer to know your name or your birthday. So you take your information and you run it through, let's say, another program, and that program says,
Oh, third-party
over
validation.
21.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not, you're still passing information, but it's just being validated by a third party, right? That's just like,
Effectively, it's kind of like
it's like
that.
VeriSign and like all the like certificate authorities. Like there's always third-party validation of like everything.
Right. So that's zero now. And there's some sort of mathematical formula that you can run so that you can do it without the other party knowing.
Yeah.
So you're not
probably
giving
like
it to a
hash.
new party. It's not you're not actually using, you're not going to like another entity and that entity saying, "Oh yeah, Jason's 21." It's run through a program that's not connected to an entity. I'm doing a really bad job of explaining zero knowledge proofs, but anyway.
That's interesting. It's probably like using some hash algorithm that like can, with a validation checksum. So like you run it through, and if it's valid, it's like, okay, that's a valid thing.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's maybe. So it's, I think, I forgot what we're talking about. Something about
Facebook.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You were talking. You had just. Well, let's just
zero party
It
proof.
was zero knowledge proofs, and you're talking about having credit cards.
Oh yeah. So every time I lose my credit card or I lose my credit card number, I have to go get it. I have to go take all my auto payment. I'm like, this sucks. I don't even know what I put on auto payment. And then like
That happened to me.
Yeah, it happens all the time. And then, or like someone's like, oh, like Barnes and Noble, or someone says, which I don't know if they're around anymore.
They are.
I
just asked someone on this podcast.
I know. I was like,
Barnes and Noble, they're still around.
Someone will get hacked and they'll be like, oh, your credit card number was, and I'm like, oh. And so now I'm like, your security's bad. And now I have all my stuff and this has happened 3 times to me.
Oh,
and so I'd like to get a credit card. Please, someone make this that has one number, and that's like the master number, and that comes with a stack of proxy credit cards that I can now use for different services. And that way, if that one's gone, I'm like, and crush that, and then swap in a new one, and digitally generate like a new credit card number for me, like on the fly. Like, why does no one have that? That should be a startup.
That's a really good question. You're right. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
We should do that.
Let's go into business. Get this gift thing.
BYOB. Bring your own blockchain with credit cards.
Yeah.
Sorry, build your own
No.
blockchain. All right. So here we go. You've done a lot of startups. You've been in the startup world for a long time. What I'd like to know is if you're talking to your old self. You were sitting down with yourself and you were going to give yourself advice, or it could be to someone you really care about that you like, and what would be one rule that you would share with them for success that you've learned over your significant time as an entrepreneur?
One piece of advice, move to Hawaii and just surf. I think
that's good.
I think everyone in Hawaii is super happy.
If you like surfing.
I think if you move to Hawaii, you'll like surfing. Like, what else is there to do except surf? Hang out.
You can hunt. They have a lot. They have hunting over there because they have like an invasive deer that was brought over there for hunting, and so hunters go there and they just
did not know
kill a ton of deer. Yeah.
Does anyone like eat venison? Like, is that a thing?
Yeah. Yes.
I was like trying to think about the last time I went to a restaurant. There was like venison.
Yeah, it's not going to be in the places where you eat, but plenty of people do. They hunt them and then they.
Does it taste good? I can't remember.
I've had venison chili. It tasted fine. Yeah. Like it did.
It seems like a weird animal to hunt and eat when like no one really eats it.
It's true because they're running wild. It's not really easy to domesticate deer. They don't really take well to domestication.
Has someone tried that?
Domesticating deer?
Yeah.
No. No.
That'd be interesting. Advice, I would say the one thing I think, okay. I mean, there's a bunch of things, but really like the number one thing, studies prove this now, it's like you should just work with your friends. Don't not work with your friends. Like why pick random people to work with? That's like not fun. You should just work, like if you're going to hang out, like relationships are the reason why you live longer and the quality of life and All the
Right.
studies show that like the quality of your relationships are really what make life worth living more than money or anything else. So if you're gonna work in a startup and you're gonna hang out, like you really want to pick the people that you would want to go on a crazy tour with, right? That you're gonna travel around the world. You're not gonna pick some like it's so mind-boggling to me when people are looking for co-founders in this like crazy hardcore kind of thing. It's like saying, hey, let's backpack around the world together, spend every night together, hang out 24 hours a day, and I'm like looking for you like on Angel List.
Yeah, that's weird. You're
Yeah,
right.
it's just like why would you do that? You're like 99% of the time you're gonna hate each other.
Yeah, I would think it's like a roommate.
Yeah, the stats are so 80% of startups are successful because they have 2 or more people, but 60% of those end up failing because of infighting between the co-founders.
Really?
Yeah, so it's like you kind of need a couple people to make it, but most likely you're gonna fail because of those people.
Yikes.
Yeah, which is like marriages in the U.S. What's like the divorce rate now? It's like 50%, 60%.
It's,
And so,
it's
like,
certainly above 50.
yeah, so these are people that you've kind of like said you're going to hang out with for the rest of your life and plan an entire life together, and you picked out someone that you actually like. Now, my parents are arranged, so you could say if you pick out someone that you're not, and they've been together for 40 years, but you could say like if you don't pick out people that weren't you don't like, maybe you make it longer. But my parents hate each other, and they've hated each other for 40 years.
Oh, that sounds really lovely.
So I think if you're gonna do a company, which is kind of like a marriage,
Mhm.
you might as well
Certainly
like
is.
do it with your friends and the people that you want to hang out with every day, and not find random people off Craigslist and have that crazy roommate. And I think that's when I see people trying to start companies, it's almost always with people they think that can be better or are the best at what they do. And that's like probably the worst thing you could possibly do, because almost 100% of the time you guys will not get along with each other at some point. Do you really want to travel with them?
Right.
Like how many engineers, especially like CTO types, like I was a CTO for many years, like how many people actually wanted to hang out with me?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, do you really want to bring the nerdy dude to on your vacation trip in Hawaii?
Well, you can hang.
Yeah.
You can hang.
I'm not talking about me.
Right.
Talking about
You're
all
not
those
the
other
nerdy
nerds.
guy.
No,
Those weird
I'm
dudes.
actually talking about me, but
All right. So for my final question, are you ready? What's your favorite book? Just kidding.
oh,
Just
Right.
kidding about that. That's like kind of a very basic question to ask. Here's what I want to know. Where do you see the most likely innovation from a technological perspective in the next 10 years?
okay. So, there's this, it's kind of being changed. There's a traditional hardware software cycle that goes over 20 years. So usually what happens is, and it's been going for like ever, it's usually there's a hardware platform that comes in, and then software comes in and uses that hardware to a point. And then once software maxes out, there's another platform. So you had computers, you had the internet, you had mobile. Those kind of go in 20-year swings.
They do?
Yeah, that's like a known engineering thing, right?
What's it called? What is that? Is there a name to that rule?
I don't know.
Like Dunbar's number or
No,
Moore's law?
I'm sure there's like the rule of 20. I'm not sure. There's probably something. This is from my engineering professor and
Okay.
all the engineers, hardware engineers that used
Chung's
to work
rule
with.
of 20.
Not my rule. Some other smart person. And we're kind of at that cycle right now where there has to be a new hardware platform. And the bet is, what is the new hardware platform? That's kind of like the big thing. And then that is going to, like, the internet's kind of been played out, like mobile's been played out. Cell phones are, declining. What is the new? So the bet really is
Cell
going.
phones are declining?
Yeah, didn't you see all the reports? Like sales are down for everyone by 30%, and like cell phone growth is like.
But that's not the real metric. The real metric is how many cell phone users are there, because you can use refurbished phones a lot. I mean, it's really only in the first world where people are going to be spending on a regular $1,000 regularly for a phone. It's a lot of money.
True, but it's more the adoption of cell phones as this thing that you cycle in over and over again. Like you're getting the newest hardware platforms.
Right.
So now that you're not getting the newest hardware platforms, you're not able to write new software, and so that cycle stops, right? So you're stuck on all the old hardware. It's like why people were stuck with like Or that's not why people were stuck with Windows XP for like 20 years. I was at an office building and I saw Windows XP and I thought they deprecated it and I was like,
Recently?
what? Yeah, I was like, this is like a couple of years ago. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, we had to. We were running Windows XP years and years and years ago, and at some point they were like, "Yeah, we're getting rid of this." They went to whatever Windows we have now, and they said, "I was like, well, why?" Because I hate it when they change platforms because I
Yeah.
learn it and I know how to
Yeah.
do stuff, and then all of a sudden I can't get to my file folder. I'm like,
Yeah.
where the hell is it? Why is it taking me 10 minutes to do that? Drives me nuts. So I always hate it. I was really annoyed when they changed to XP, but they've gotten better at making systems you can follow.
Yeah, it's getting simpler and simpler. I've been on a PC and a Mac and Linux. Like, I cycle through all of those. And Mac is still like, I was on a PC for most of my life, then I switched to Mac, then I was Linux, and Macs are still a little bit better. And Windows is kind of catching up, but still not quite there yet, almost.
In their intuitiveness?
And just in terms of like the way that the ease of use.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really want Windows to be good, but it's not quite there yet.
Right. I just wish they had a good video app that you can use for video editing. Because Mac
Premiere?
It's not that good.
Okay.
I mean, what's the one? The iMovie is phenomenal.
Yeah,
You
Final
know.
Cut, but that's only on Macs.
Yeah. I mean, there's some. It's interesting that when you look at the PC and the Mac, there's like Adobe, which you can kind of do for both. That's really great, but they're all very complex. So you still don't have for certain things simplistic, easy to use programs on both.
Yeah, hopefully that will happen soon. So going back to the question, it really is. It's the bet's going to be on hardware.
Okay.
So and there's only a few players right now. There could be something totally out of left field, or is it right field? I know right field's super boring because I used to pitch, and playing right field is where you went when it was like they just wanted you off the team.
You're like, well,
right when I hit right field, I was like, okay, I got to get out of here. So one could be AR glasses, like if
really,
yeah. So if the only reason is if you can put AR glasses, if Apple gets that right, because they're going to put out theirs, the monitor world goes away, right? Like all the LCD panels, like I think the killer app in AR is none of these games and all these weird apps that none of the Magic Leap stuff. It really is just a monitor. Like just bring a monitor. That way I don't have to sit at a desk. I don't have to, all the LCD panels, which are the most expensive part of anyone's computer system, that's like half the cost of all these screens is like your laptop is the monitor.
Really?
Is the LCD panel. That's like, costs like $500 for some of those, really like the HD ones. So you get rid of all of that with a pair of glasses. Now things start to get a little, it's like being mobile with your eyes. Like I have to go to work and I have 3 monitors. Like you have your own monitor set up.
Yeah.
Like imagine if you had that set up anywhere you went. And that is like,
that'd be pretty
that's
cool.
what the mobile phone did. It allowed you to do email and other things not at your desk. So you got like 50% of mobility, but when you have to do real work, you have to go back to your desk.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I like to work from home at times, and
you have a setup there and you have to sit this place.
not yet, but I mean, I want to get one because it is much easier having a couple of big monitors that you can do things on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just easier.
So if the AR platform comes, I think you'll see a weird thing where all the cell phones will go away because who needs to carry around these heavy things? We have screens in our eye, like our glasses.
Right.
And not
Mr.
in the
Nakamura.
nerdy way. Like if
What was it, Mr. Tanaka?
if they were like Warby Parker, like looking glasses and
Right.
no one knew. And then we would just be holding up anything and it would be a cell phone or a monitor. I think that crushes most of like technology. That could be interesting. That will probably be another 20-year cycle. I think all the AI stuff, I think it's interesting, but it's really once the hardware becomes more interesting enough that it can start doing some more interesting computations. But right now it's still using like 20-year-old tech. Like all of the algorithms that people are coming up with are pretty old. So AI could be interesting, but probably not unless there's hardware.
I think it's so overhyped, man. Everyone talks about AI. It's like,
yeah, it's kind of like
what's
blockchain.
AI? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like a bunch of like different code that does something that is
Yeah.
nowhere near what what an actual person can do and think.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for like for it to be useful. I think the hardware has to be much better. There's quantum computing. A lot of people are building the hardware right now. And so it's just in the very beginning. That if that platform ends up being a little more useful in the next 5-10 years, you'll see like whole software systems moving there. Or what's the other one? Bio. So a lot of people now are starting to create, like MIT put out like a programming language with like E. coli. People are starting to create fundamental blocks in biology and using biocomputers to do kind of work.
I've heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. If you can reprogram some small basic bacteria to do like random machine work. And so there's a lot of work.
Nuts.
Yeah, there's a lot of work going into how do you exploit DNA and reprogram bio machines. So one of those, my bet is whatever hardware platform starts to develop faster, once the hardware platform's there, software ends up being like creating a lot of stuff. It's like Legos. Someone has to create the Legos, and then a million things can be invented until people are bored of Legos. So like we are now at the point where the internet and mobile have kind of reached their hardware platform cycle, and now we're at the age of something new. So whatever hardware takes off, that will be the next 10-year, kind of 20-year cycle.
So I'll see you with green eyes. You'll be back with. It's going to be
Green
really
eyes?
painful, but you can get green eyes if you just put this bacteria.
Oh, who needs green eyes? A bacteria, like, I want like something to eat all my garbage. There's like so many things that I'd want. Imagine like watering your, like I have a friend right now. I'm helping the startup. It's called, they do DNA tracking where they put DNA trackers in probiotics.
Okay.
And when cows or anyone eats these probiotics, they can track the DNA back to where it came from. So they can do supply chain validation by looking at DNA that's been put into the food supply system or any liquid. So
wow.
So you're starting to see like, oh, we can validate where did this meat come from, or what did this wherever
this
came
cow
from
eat?
Yeah, where did it come from, or who manufactured it? And now you're able to start that's just one application of a lot of this, right? Being able to, and then like the main goal of this company was to start encoding information into DNA. You can imagine, take the Library of Congress, and you can store all of that in DNA, like the entire information of the world.
Are you kidding me?
No, you can technically do it.
It would
just DNA has it's so far. I mean, of what I know. And there's probably better ways, but it's one of the most compact, dense forms of storage. Like there's holographic, and then there's DNA.
I might have heard of that recently. Yeah, people talking about that.
And so if you can store a lot of information in DNA, imagine putting all the world's information in DNA and then planting it. And so you literally have the tree of knowledge, and you plant this plant, and throughout as long as you keep this heirloom tomato going around, it has the information of mankind growing constantly.
And then an alien is going to come and eat it. It's going to be done.
Yeah.
I'm going to crap it out. It'll be finished.
And then global warming will happen, and then it'll be over.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that.
So it's just hardware platform, and that's just ability with CRISPR to move DNA around. And now once that becomes faster and easier and cheaper, now you have the ability to hack into most bio. And then people start cataloging it and creating the Legos of which they can now start creating bio machines. And now you have software. And once you get software, then you get all the people who don't know what they're doing.
Is it actual software though?
Yeah, it's actually people coding it, and then these machines actually move the DNA around and molecules around.
And then you can have people that you're saying that don't know what the hell they're doing, that aren't engineers actually doing
stuff. That take
stuff.
a 3-month GA class.
And become your CTO.
Yeah, and then messing with the world. That's how the world will end.
that's true.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be by cow farts, it's gonna be by somebody just reprogramming
some bacteria, and
or Godzilla.
Accidentally they'll be they'll just fall asleep on their keyboard, and some random mutation will happen, and then we'll all be dead.
The blob.
Yeah. Who needs crypto?
That's right.
Yeah, crypto seems kind of boring compared to all the other new stuff that's coming out, right?
It kind of does. I mean, you were talking about some really cool stuff.
Yeah, crypto for me is just it's just a way for people to not. It's a what someone explained it to me as like it's a bunch of people who don't trust each other to all transact. Like it's like this. It's like
You
no
mean
one.
It's humankind.
Yeah. It's basically humankind. It's just like a public ledger. And I was like, can't we just write everything on a piece of paper?
That's right.
Can we just like publish it?
We'll get a big building. We'll just carve it into the building, and everyone can see it.
Yeah, and then we're done. Like, why do we need any of this other stuff? Yeah.
All right.
That's it.
Well, hey, man, that was awesome. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having
Love
me.
to have you
Just-
again. We're going to
just
talk
hanging
about
out.
DNA.
DNA, I know. DNA is a crazy
DNA
thing.
storage.
Yeah, they're close to artificially making it now. It's kind of crazy.
That's nuts.
I mean, they can make artificial DNA, but like they're trying to figure out like if it randomly generated or not.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
and
really wild.
Then there's all these quantum experiments that are going on right now. Like, it's like I feel like it's quantum revival right now with all the quantum computing and.
But
all
I heard that quantum computers are not really viable because they get so hot that they can explode, and they need to be in like sub-zero temperatures.
Yeah, they're all like they're all like liquid cooled, but there are a bunch of startups now that are building these quantum computers with a lot of funding that have, I forgot how many qubits they have, but they're starting to be legit where they can start doing actual things.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and they're all like super cooled chips. Like I met one of the founders of one of the a company that's the leading edge of quantum computing, and it's just like amazing. Like these guys spent like 5 years building this one chip, and it's like the craziest piece of engineering. And
Really?
and now it's like they're scaling it and they're just stacking them all together, and then the cooling constraints are like hard, but it's just a weird thing to have, even like 128 bits in parallel running in it's like I don't know. I gotta watch Star Trek.
Yeah, man. It's just we'll get to the moon with
Yeah.
that, right? To the moon and Saturn.
Yeah, we haven't been back to the moon in forever. Oh, there was that Israeli where they were trying to do the moon landing not too long ago.
Remote moon landing.
Yeah, I think that crashed.
It
right?
did. Yeah, it
Bummer.
did. Hey, man, whatever. They'll get to it.
Yeah, they'll do it.
Someone will get to it
It'll
again.
take a while.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks,
man.
dude.
Well, thank you again. Hope to have you soon. And
Yep.
Alex Chung, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
Have a good night.
Well, it's been